The ancient sacred text is from the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. On the seventh day, God had finished all the work of creation. And so on that seventh day, God rested. God blessed the seventh day and called it sacred, because on it God rested from all the work of creation. Holy word, holy wisdom. Thanks be to God.
So in my family, did everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, just testing our audio again. In my family, growing up, we went to church for a few years when I was a kid. And somewhere along the way, I learned about Sunday being a day of rest, that God did all this work, and then he got to rest. But in my family and the culture I was growing up in, this was more theory than practice. I don't remember my parents ever really resting. Sundays may have started off with church, but were usually followed by yard work and meal prep, fixing things around the house. There was always something to be done, and there were always kids to take care of. And over the last few years, I've spent a lot of time thinking about where this came from. My dad grew up as an adopted kid on a farm in rural Canada, and he moved to Atlanta, where he met my mom. He was estranged from his family, and he started a new life for himself. He built a business as a landscape designer and contractor, really through brute force. Like, he would literally lift boulders by himself. This is something that we would witness him doing all the time. He was the picture of the stereotypical rugged individualist, and he would only hire help from time to time, like when he really needed it for a bigger job. He climbed the ladder of upward mobility and classism and white supremacy and ableism, and he started collecting the badges of success. We had a big, meticulously decorated house. He had well-behaved children dressed in matching outfits from head to toe. Where we lived in the South, you even had a bow that matched the rest of your outfit. And all of us were booked and busy with school and lots of lessons and activities. And my mom's version of busyness was what was available to her as a woman of her generation. She kept a perfectly clean home and a perfectly lean and controlled body. And she ran for miles every day. She made sure that she and her children looked well put together all the time. And again, we lived in the South, and my parents would often talk about rednecks and the rednecks who lived around us in the area. And it was very clear that it was important to differentiate ourselves from these so-called rednecks. To be redneck was to be poor, uneducated, lazy, and clearly these were some of the worst things a person could be. So we were taught to work hard to rise above those kind of people, to earn our worth. We were taught to win at the game of capitalism and white supremacy, where the prizes are wealth, status, bodily control in the form of thinness specifically, and a specific type of beauty. What you did and looked like was more important than what you felt or were on the inside. Most of these messages were modeled and not spoken, except for the comments about rednecks, of course. And I absorbed all of these really well. I was deeply programmed into what I now call a cult of perfectionism and productivity. So by the time I was a teenager, I'd already forgotten how to rest. I remember over this one winter break, I was probably in 8th grade, I wrote in my journal, "I feel bad for being so lazy. I guess I'm just in the cozy mode of sitting around." I'd just been, I didn't have my normal activities during this break, and I'd been sitting around reading, which was something I loved to do. But I could barely allow myself to even be cozy anymore. I filled up every minute of every day by keeping perfect grades, participating in clubs and activities both before and after school, dancing ballet, getting up early to run on the weekends, sometimes with my mom. I couldn't even sit and watch TV anymore without feeling like I needed to get something done. And in high school, I started drinking coffee to stay up at night to study for my honors classes. And I would brag about how little sleep I'd gotten the night before a big test or a paper was due. And I carried this productivity programming into my life as an adult. I worked as an AP teacher, and I would teach about 200 students a year and often work 9 or 10-hour days. And I would then spend time grading on the weekends on my own time. And I would get accolades for training my students to excel on a prestigious national exam. And I realized since then that I treated them and myself like we were all machines. My teaching partner even lovingly nicknamed me the taskmaster. And I would walk fast down the hallways. I would try to save every second to get something extra done. This part hopefully is not TMI for everyone. I would even pee as fast as I could. like push out the pee as fast as I could because I felt like I didn't have time to let my body just do what it needed to do, which was actually doing violence to my body, causing injury to my pelvic floor over time. But it was all in the name of, oh my gosh, I've always have something else that I need to get done. So I became a parent, and a lot of this only got worse. Now I was responsible for keeping 2 tiny humans alive, in addition to trying to earn my worth as a professional and channel my fear and outrage after the 2016 election. That was the same year that I had my first child, Oscar. And I just walked around in a state of hypervigilance and urgency most of the time. A to-do list would constantly run through my head. It was like one of those, the news tickers on CNN. It was just constant stream. What do you need to do next, right? And there was a period where I ate most of my meals standing up. And if I let myself lie down on the couch for a few minutes, I would jump up if one of my kids came into the room, as if I'd been caught doing something shameful. A critical voice within me said that a good mom is always available to entertain and take care of her kids at literally every moment. And then came 2020. I responded to the uncertainty, the chaos, the death, the violence, the grief, the despair, our state being on fire, this endless stream of bad news, by trying to find some scrap of control. I knew it wasn't even real control. It was an illusion of control, but I was I'm good with that. I'll take the illusion. And because it just felt like the best I could get, right? It was some sort of illusion of control. And I kept that illusion of control going by staying busy. Part of me believed that if I just kept myself and my family busy, then we could somehow escape this sense of desperation and this sense of impending doom and try to make things seem somewhat normal for our kids. And I started getting sick all the time. I thought it was just because kids were spreading their germs like they do, but I just kept getting sick, and it was really hard for me to get better. I got COVID eventually. I didn't get better from that. I just kept getting worse. I would go to the doctor multiple times, and they would keep doing tests. Those tests came back normal, and I just didn't know what was wrong with me. And there were times when I couldn't even leave our house or even my bed. I was just totally depleted. It's like all energy had been drained from my body. And I had to put most of my life on pause because I couldn't do basic things. It was like my body was declaring a complete boycott. It was like demanding the rest that it had been denied for years. So then I started hearing stories of people suffering from burnout and exhaustion and conditions like chronic fatigue syndrome. And I found out that when the nervous system is exposed to prolonged trauma and stress, It becomes chronically activated and hypersensitized. And eventually the mind and body try to protect themselves from all these perceived threats by shutting down any functions that they don't see as necessary. So that was what was happening to me. So this is what leads to all kinds of mysterious and chronic and often invisible health conditions. When this was going on with me, I looked fairly normal from the outside. Like you could tell that my health was in such a terrible state. And I also found out that people with these conditions tend to have common traits. They often have a history of complex trauma or intense stress. They are perfectionists and hard on themselves. They're high achieving. They're people pleasers and helpers, and they're generally active and busy. And I learned that if I didn't address these behaviors for myself, that my health and my life would continue to deteriorate. So I did a lot of different things to help myself heal. And one of the keys to now lasting recovery has been learning how to rest. Learning how to deprogram myself from the cult of perfectionism and productivity. Learning that, as Tricia Hersey tells us, we don't have to earn rest, that our bodies are still our own, that our bodies and spirits do not belong to capitalism, that we are divine, and we have a divine right to rest. Learning how to rest has restored my connection to myself, to others, and to the great mystery of this beautiful world. And I've been working on this for almost 3 years now, and I'm still being what I call deprogrammed. I'm still learning to embody an unconditional love for myself that's not based on what I achieve or what I do. I've been in recovery for many other things, including alcohol and eating disorders, and I don't say this part lightly. This part about deprogramming from productivity has been the hardest and deepest behavior for me to change. And I can tell you that it is possible to change, that it's possible to reclaim our birthright to rest and care and to live in our bodies as our own. It is some of the hardest work in my experience and some of the most valuable work, because I believe our relationships and our future and our collective life on this planet depends on it. And so I invite you to do a little practice with me. This is just one version of what a little bit of a rest break can look like. This is a version of some of the work that I've been doing myself very deeply over the last few years. And it's just a simple practice that invites us to get into our bodies, to just take a moment to see what's there, to not feel like we have to do anything. And this one just involves some simple breathing exercises. So we're going to think about giving our minds and bodies a break to explore what shape rest can take right here, right now. And remember that choosing is more important than doing. Listen to what your body wants to do rather than automatically following my guidance. So I'll invite you to get into a comfortable position. If you want to shift your position at all, please feel free. Your hands can be resting in your lap or at your sides or draped across a pew, whatever feels good to you. And take a deep breath and allow yourself to fully settle in with the exhale. And take a moment now to acknowledge that you're taking a few minutes for rest, specifically right now. And you might notice parts of you that are maybe not happy to take a few minutes to rest, that would rather be doing something else, or that are questioning what you're doing right now. And just notice that. That's all welcome. And if you like, you might set an intention for what you hope to gain from this exercise. or just be open to whatever comes up. If an intention feels like work, just let it go. Don't worry about it. And if you haven't already, I invite you to close your eyes or take a soft gaze at a point somewhere in the room. And we're just going to focus our awareness on the simple act of breathing. There's no need to try to control your breathing or change anything about it right now. Just simply notice it. Allow yourself to observe the motion and sensations of the breath. Notice how your body moves when you breathe. Paying attention to your chest rising and falling as you inhale and exhale. Noticing the feeling of the air coming in and out of your nose. How the air might feel cool when it goes in and warmer when it goes out. Noticing your belly expanding and contracting as you breathe in and out. And stay focused on your breathing for the next few moments. Pay attention to whatever part of your breathing is catching your awareness. The rise and fall of your chest. The air going in and out of your nose. Your belly expanding and contracting. And if you like, I invite you to say a word to yourself on the inhale and exhale. For example, on the inhale, you might say to yourself, calm. And on the exhale, you might say to yourself, release. So I might inhale, calm. And exhale, release. Or you can use any words that seem right for you. You can also try on the inhale here, and on the exhale now. And take another couple breaths with those words, whichever ones you've chosen. And just feel yourself relaxing and releasing with each inhale and exhale. And I invite you to notice how you're feeling right now as we prepare to close. Maybe noticing any difference between how you feel now and how you felt when we first began. Maybe noticing any sensations that you feel in your body. Maybe there's a heaviness. There could be a tingling sensation, or you might notice the feeling of energy moving around. Maybe you notice that your breathing has slowed down and deepened. Maybe you notice a sense of calm or relaxation or peace. And maybe you notice at the same time parts of you that were resistant to this practice. And again, just notice that reaction. It's just information. And when you're ready, I invite you to gently open your eyes and sit quietly for a moment, reorienting to your surroundings, appreciating this moment of rest and stillness. Maybe thinking about what rest might look like for you over this next week. Thinking about how you might invite in a practice like this or something totally different that would feel restful to you. And I will ring our bowl 3 times to signal our transition out of our practice. Thank you for joining me for that. In our community, we engage in one-to-ones where we reflect on our themes for the day, where we connect with each other. And of course, you are always invited to reflect by yourself if you choose. So I invite you for today to find someone to chat with, maybe someone you haven't talked to before, haven't talked to in a while. And our questions for today are, what did I learn about rest growing up from my family, school, society, or workplace? And how has this shaped my relationship to rest?